All right, we got to let it breathe and bring in the Facebook groups here. Got to make sure I'm clicking the right ones. And got to wait for a couple green check marks. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Valentine's Day Friday night. Got one, got two, we're good to go. Welcome into another episode of Dev Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and joining me is Lance Sanderson, my good friend and colleague of multiple years, 5 years of doing this show. Lance, it's good to have you on. How are you doing tonight, man?
Mile high. Hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome in, guys. I'm doing great. This is going to be a fun show, a little somber show, but it's going to be a fun show. I'm doing good, man. It's always good to be here and talking football with you on a Friday evening, offering up just an escape for everybody in Broncos country to get away from the real world. And can't wait. Some updates are coming here soon, and we'll see what's going on, man. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing all right. It hasn't been the best week for me, but doing all right. Tonight is a somewhat bittersweet after 5 years. This is the temporarily last episode of Dev Valley Deep Divers. If you guys tuned in last week, you guys would know that. For now, it's just being placed on the back burner, with off-season stuff going on. We're just looking at some different things, putting different things out there, coming up with different ideas. And eventually we will be back to you in front of you in some capacity. We got to just figure out, some of the minor details before we get back to that. But we want to thank you all for what has been a wonderful 5 years. And we will definitely, speak again about this briefly here in just a little bit. We are going to keep this a little bit of a shorter episode. It is Valentine's Day night, and for me, I do have plans with the wife, so I'm going to be out of here before too long. So we're only going to go about half an hour. But before we get into these topics, which we're going to be talking about, the Broncos' new hiring and some stuff about Bo Nix, we have Papa Bear coming in with a $2 donation saying, "Outstanding hire. Good evening, Broncos country." And we have MBLE Test Prep saying, "The Rizzler will bring the boom to Denver." So first off here, we have another super chat from David Youngkin. We'll grab that here in just a second because it deals with the next topic. But your thoughts on Darren Rizzi becoming the special teams coordinator here in Denver?
My first original thought, and maybe the one that's the most negative about this, is here we go again, Sean Payton. We're bringing in the guys that you're familiar with, the guys that you like. It's the old crony logic that comes into this. I mean, you got Joe Lombardi on staff, you've got Pete Carmichael on staff, a bunch of different guys that he's had with New Orleans. I mean, Zach Strief at the offensive line coach. Like you're bringing back the old guard. Lil Jordan Humphrey, another one of those players. I mean, we're talking free agency here in the next couple of days, and Zach Bond is a big topic because of the connection with Sean Payton. But then you actually dive into this thing and you understand exactly what you're getting in Darren Rizzi. And we're talking one of the best and most well-respected special teams coordinators in all of the NFL that you're stacking onto a team that was, Eric, I think you brought up 8th highest grade in special teams according to Pro Football Focus this last season. The turnaround from this unit year over year from 2023 to 2024 is already remarkable. And you're bringing a guy that brings such a great reputation to help further accentuate the growth on special teams.
Yeah. Now, one thing about this is, as you said, Darren Rizzi, he is a well-respected special teams coordinator, and he is one of the best special teams coordinators in the NFL. In 12 seasons that Pro Football Focus has kept special teams DVOA, and this is a tweet from Andrew Mason, which is from 2013 until now, Darren Rizzi's special teams have ranked in the top 10 on 8 of those 12 seasons, including 4 times in the top 5. The results are there. We've seen it. We've seen him go through changes with what he has to deal with on special teams there in New Orleans, and he's consistently producing. He was so respected in New Orleans that they made him the interim head coach, and we saw improvement from the team. So again, it's not just for me, it's not just the special teams coaching ability. It's the respect that he gets from fellow coaches, from people around the NFL, and especially from his players. I think this is a great hire for the Broncos. This was a hire that everybody was expecting. I mean, the Chicago Bears, they expressed interest back in January when they're putting together their coaching staff, but he kind of pulled out of that, and then he sat and waited. He was waiting on what the New Orleans Saints did with head coach, because he was part of that conversation. They were they were looking at him, at keeping him on as the full-time head coach. Well, they went and hired Kellen Moore, and Darren Rizzi, just a couple days after that was announced, here he is in Denver. inking the contract and getting things done. Now, before we get to the next part of this conversation, we do have a quick word from our presenting sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. This basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, we're going to give you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, you can with Underdog.
Yeah, guys, it's really easy to play. Choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, like points, assists, rebounds, everything like that. Underdog's got all your favorite leagues, their teams, all the stars to choose from. You can create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports, soccer, college basketball, the whole 9 yards. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 with just your hoops knowledge.
So download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code MHUDDLE to unlock a special offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MHUDDLE. Claim your special offer today and get up to 1,000 times bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Now, you must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, and 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Thank you, Underdog, for the sponsor.
Thank you, Underdog.
Now, moving on to the next part of this conversation, Bo Nix. We're used to it, right? Bo Nix and the Broncos, or not necessarily Bo Nix, but the Broncos in general, they often get some disrespect against them in national media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, we have David Youngkin coming in with the $4.99 donation. Thank you, David. We appreciate that. Do you think that Bo cares about what the media has to say about any of this disrespect that he has? I know my answer to this, and it's going to be one that a lot of people don't agree with, but I can speak from experience on this. But Lance, go ahead. Do you think Bo cares about what the media has to say?
Yeah, we're humans. And not only just that, I mean, we know from prior coaching situations that there was a coach within the Broncos that gave every single talking head article for players to read if they so choose. Like that's an ongoing thing that these players say, oh, I don't read that. I don't pay attention to the headlines. It's not my business to, pay attention to that. But they do. We know it from personal experience. Some players will reach out to you and say, hey, man, or get an agent that comes to you and say, hey, by the way, this isn't really accurate or anything like that. Like it happens all the time where these players will say, Jalen Hurts just did it the other day. I mean, go outside of basketball. You got guys like Michael Porter Jr. for the Nuggets who had all the headlines around him and his brother, Jonte, and the gambling thing. Michael Porter Jr. says, I don't really pay attention to that, but you could tell he knew what was going on. It's a thing that these players want to like take the high road. We got to be, nice about it publicly, not crap on the media and stuff like that. We know that these guys see it. It's a point blank, like plain and simple fact that they see it. Everybody cares.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts, as you said, he just talked about it. He talked about some of the issues that he was dealing with last season in the 2023 season because of what the attention the media was giving him, the negative attention that he was receiving. And it was hard for him to shrug it off. He just got done talking about that just the other day. And he's talked about it a couple times. Multiple players have come out and talked about this. Now, I also know for a fact that they do because there have been a number of times where players and or their agents have reached out to me to address something that I may have written about them. It happens. They pay attention. Now the question is, how much do they care? And David Youngkin comes and says he might read it, but it doesn't mean he cares. They do care. It's just how much do they care? For some of these players, it is saying, oh, okay, that's what you're going to say about me? Well, I'm going to go prove you wrong. This was the case with one player who's reached out to me privately in a Twitter DM a few years ago. It was, he took what I had to say and used it as motivation. That is one of the most common things that we see out of players. They use this negativity and they use it to motivate them. The Broncos this past season had multiple players talking about some of the negativity that they got, the Las Vegas odds on their over under, things like that. And what were they coming out and saying? This is a motivating factor for us.
Yep.
You're looking down on us. We're going to prove you wrong.
Yep.
And to at least that extent, they all care. Now, do they care? Now, does Bo Nix care enough to where it's going to derail him? I doubt that. I don't think it's going to be sit there and weigh on him so much that he goes out there and malfunctions, so to speak, as a quarterback. I don't think he's that kind of player.
Yeah.
But he is going to be one that is probably looking at it and being like, continuing with this hate. I got a lot of hate going leading up to the draft process. I'm going to keep using this. I'm going to keep building on it, and I'm going to keep proving people wrong.
Right. And Chase Wellner just jumps in here with a couple of comments saying Bo has been written off plenty of times before the league and even early this season. So if anybody's going to be unbothered by it, it's him. We're talking about the consummate professional here. Bo Nix has jumped into the NFL with a maturity about him that I never knew. Like, I knew that he was always very poised and very professional about everything that goes on around him, but there's a maturity about him, and his teammates continuously speak glowingly about him. And Garrett Bowles, take it with a grain of salt. He's never going to talk bad about a teammate. But yeah, Quinn Miners, Cortland Sutton, Mike McGlinchey, Pat Surtain, guys on the defensive side of the football that are just around him say he's consummate professional. He's always consistently motivated by everything that's going on around him, and he's kind of out here to prove everybody wrong. That's these other players saying that. So yes, they know what's going on in the media. They understand what the situation is. If they're going to talk about it, Bo's going to hear about it. Like that's the big thing. They all say, oh, we don't pay attention to it. Well, you're paying attention to it at least a little bit.
They do. They talk about it in team meetings. They talk about it in position meetings. They pay attention. It's just how much do they care? Mm-hmm. Now, on this subject, no matter how much Bo Nix cares, I care. Because I, for one, am tired of the constant disrespect the Broncos get. And it's been for years that we've been dealing with this. You can go read my opinions. I'm putting the link in the chat now about Bo Nix in this. And it's not just where he ranked. So to get into this, it was ranking all 59 starting quarterbacks from the 2024 season and playoffs. 2024 season and playoffs only. It's not talking about 2023. It's not talking about anything beyond that. It's just 2024. Okay. And Bo Nix came 20th. 20th out of 59. That's not too bad, right?
Yeah, except where he ranked, where those other players ranked above him.
The issue is who ranks above him. Now, I have issues with some of them. I have issues with Matthew Stafford ranking above him. I have issues with Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Geno Smith. I can get the argument as to why they were, but I just don't agree with it. That's one thing. I'm not super upset about that. I don't consider that disrespect. I consider that different opinions. What I do consider disrespect is a guy who played in 8 games being ranked ahead of Brock Purdy, with the guy who was benched for being as terrible as he was to start the season being ranked ahead of Bo Nix, Bryce Young, and Dak Prescott. I mean, best ability is availability. We talk about it a lot. Dak Prescott played 8 games. He played well in those 8 games, but he played in 8 games, whereas Bo Nix played in every single one and led this Broncos team to vastly exceed expectations that were placed upon them. That is insane to me that you can look at what they did and put the guy with 8 games on this season ahead of Bo Nix.
Yeah, well, talk about Tua Tagovailoa, who has been one of the most controversial starting quarterbacks in the NFL over the last handful of seasons, particularly with his concussion issues. He missed another 6 games this season with a concussion again. And while he came back and he performed that Miami offense to perfection, you got to give credit where credit is due, at least when he's on the field. Bo Nix played all 17 games as a rookie and set rookie franchise records. We talked about this last week, Eric, with Bo Nix being ranked or being voted as number 3 on Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's not that I agree with it. I understand why people put Brock Bowers ahead of Bo Nix in that discussion. But Bo Nix, as a quarterback, took a team to the playoffs with a projected win total of 5.5 on the season coming into the year. A team that everyone said had the worst roster in the NFL. I believe Pro Football Focus had him ranked 31. NFL.com had him ranked 32 coming into the season. Yep. And he took that team to the playoffs based on his play alone. Like the disrespect coming out of this has nothing to do with where he ranks. It's who ranks ahead of him. And Tua
Yes.
is a good quarterback, but that team didn't. They were not in the playoff conversation for the most part. They were a fringe playoff team. Kyler Murray
And
had a good season. Bo Nix had a better season than Kyler Murray did, at least in impact, in my opinion.
now on Tua, because you raise a good point here. Tua, when he's out there, he plays well. But at the same time, almost every NFL analyst is in agreement here that Tua holds that Miami offense back.
Yeah.
Now, take away the quarterback. What set of offense would you rather have, Miami or Denver?
Probably Miami's with the creativity that Mike McDaniel
No, I'm just talking about players. I'm just talking about the players.
Oh yeah, I would take Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and that entire offense, Devon A-Chain, Raheem Mostert over everything that Denver has.
Yeah, I mean, it's Cortland Sutton and others in Denver, and in Miami is you have pretty well loaded talent at every single position. And so Tua, all he has to go out there is he just has to go out there and manage them all and, put the ball out there with time and rhythm, which, hey, it's good. He does that. But the offense could be so much better with a better quarterback who can be out there on the field consistently. Bo Nix had Cortland Sutton and the others. The only thing that Bo Nix had that was better in Denver than what Tua had in Miami was the offensive line.
Yep.
And that's it.
Bring that up.
But Miami, you had more of a running game to lane off of. Like, it is just a interesting thing at the very least to see Tua ahead of him, trying to be, somewhat political with this. And Cody W says, if Bo was in Miami, that would be scary. If Bo was in Miami and scary just is putting it lightly.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially with what Bo has done well as his growth. I brought this up last week as well. The growth that you saw from him from week 1 to week 4, and then week 4 to week 8, then week 8 to week 12, as you break this season down into quarters, the growth you saw in those 4-quarter increments of the season was palpable. It was a straight line trajectory up pretty much the entire time. We talked about Jaden Daniels. He was on a rocket ship straight up, then plateaued out, and then went on a rocket ship straight up again. Bo met Jaden Daniels at the top of the quarterback echelon in terms of what he was able to do operating the offense as dictated to him. I'm not saying that Bo didn't have a lot of freedoms to kind of create and do some things with his legs and stuff like that, but what Sean Payton did as compared to Cliff Kingsbury made Bo Nix become a quicker processor on top of the already quick processor that he was dealing with, made him work more towards the middle of the field. Yeah, there was a lot of easy screens and dump offs and stuff like that built into the offense as well. But Bo went out there and he executed it on a weekly basis and continued to improve. If you put him in that Mike McDaniel offense with explosive weapons that could create over the middle of the field, like Jalen Waddle, like a Tyreek Hill, guys that have yards after the catch creativity, how dangerous would he have been in that offense? It'd have been unstoppable. That's why you're seeing all these talks about, I hate this term, the Joker, the mismatch. We need a mismatch over the middle of the field in terms of a running back or a tight end or just a playmaker that can create yards after the catch and do it at a high level within this offense. That's why you're hearing all these rumors of Deebo Samuel coming into town. It's why you're seeing guys like Luther Burden potentially being put to the Broncos in the NFL draft. Teteroa McMillan is another guy that has that ability. You've got Erick Ayomaner from Stanford. Like, those guys create yards after the catch. Give Bo Nix a guy like that, the ceiling is incredibly high.
Yeah, guys, we're only got about 10 minutes left. So if you guys have any burning questions get them in now. But to me, honestly, like Dak Prescott, that's insulting. Tua, that's insulting. Bryce Young, that is the worst of it.
Yeah,
this dude got benched for being so bad. Like, and part of the reason that he gives, and I quote, is Young could have drifted off into football irrelevance if he wasn't mentally tough enough to overcome the challenges that faced him after the first 2 weeks of the season. 2 dreadful outings had him on the bench by week 3, with his days in Charlotte appearing to be numbered. But when he returned to the starting lineup in week 8, Young made the most of his second chance, showing flashes of what made him the number 1 overall pick in 2023. Okay? But he lasted 2 weeks before getting benched. The former number 1 overall pick 2 games and got benched, and you're going to set all of that aside because of how he did over the final 10 weeks, that to me is I can't say the word while we're live, but it is unbelievable the mental gymnastics here that are being done to justify Young over Bo Nix in these rankings.
Well, let's just break down this argument. After the first 2 weeks, Bryce Young, yeah, granted, he started for the majority of last season. I think all of last season as a rookie, but he got benched after the first 2 games because of the struggles that he endured. Let's go back to the first 2 weeks of Bo Nix here really fast. He threw for 138 yards and 2 interceptions on a 47.5 quarterback rating against the Seattle Seahawks. And then the next week, 246 yards, another 2 interceptions on a 55.2% quarterback ranking against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that not struggles enough for you guys? Understandably, he's a rookie, got to deal with those first game jitters, rookie struggles and stuff like that. But Bryce Young got benched for the next 6 games, 8 games, whatever it was. And when he came back, yeah, he did show those flashes, and it was really fun to see him. And I'm actually really excited about the potential of Bryce Young. But even at the end of the season, Bo Nix still showed more consistency and better playmaking ability than Bryce Young did. What are we doing here?
Got a funny comment here. William Catalano. I can't believe I'm hearing Lance and Erick step up for a quarterback at once. In this instance, it's deserved.
It is.
We've tried telling you, but Bo Nix, even though I still have my reservations about Bo Nix being a franchise quarterback, and we talked about that last week, I still want to see more. But he showed enough to give me, that hope that he can be that guy.
Yep.
We just got to see these next steps. But if you're sitting there telling me out of 59 starting quarterbacks last year, that he was the 20th best one, even not telling me who's the 19 ahead of him, I'm still going to question it because Bo Nix was better than that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's my opinions on him and where he's at is I can still recognize that he still had a great season, that he shouldn't have been 3rd in offensive rookie of the year voting. He should have been 2nd. But to sit there and then throw out some of these guys ahead of him who I don't see how anyone who knows anything about the game of football can sit there and watch these guys say that they had a better 2024 season than Bo Nix did. That is just, again, it's mind-boggling to me, and I don't get it. And it's not something, and especially for someone like me who is very critical of quarterback play, especially in Denver, because I want the best. I want to see the best. My expectations. It still is one of those things of this is ridiculous. And this is just plays into the whole narrative that national media has a bias against Denver that we have seen for years.
Literally the entire history of the franchise. Let's just go back to the Hall of Fame one time. I want to go back to that comment. I can't believe I'm hearing Lance and Erick stick up for our quarterback for once. LOL. Unfortunately, not being able to come on the show has kind of hidden a lot of the thoughts that I've had. And Erick, you in the group chat, what happens in the group chat typically stays in the group chat. But there's a lot of times where I stood up for Bo Nix and really, hey, he's playing a hell of a lot better than we ever thought. A lot of our criticisms over the summer came from our analysis of what the situation was at Oregon and what he was as a player coming in. We didn't know, we both said it seems to be a good fit. It was our valuation of Bo as a prospect. We thought that the Broncos could have traded down to get him and still landed him in the 19s and 20s. And can't tell you everything, but there's hints there. We thought that was actually going to be a possibility. We didn't think that he was going to step in and immediately become I'm going to say it out loud right now, a high-quality starting quarterback in the NFL as a rookie. There was always going to be questions with Bo Nix as the 6th quarterback taken in a loaded draft class. It was never necessarily about the talent. It was the evaluation of him. And I evaluated Bo Nix as a borderline 2nd to 3rd round pick. He went 12 overall. That as an analyst, as the analysis part of what we do at Dove Valley Deep Divers was something that always stuck in my craw a little bit. And the more information I got, the more I was like, you know what? Sean Payton was right. He was absolutely correct. I said it last week. I'm 75% sure. He is a 10-year franchise starting quarterback at the NFL. Let me see what he does next season. And if he does it again next year, I will be screaming from the rooftops. Sean Payton was right. I was absolutely wrong. And the Broncos have their guy for 100%.
Now, last call for any comments here. There's two more I want to grab. Joe Mannix coming in and saying, Bo didn't beat the top 10 teams this year. That had a lot to do with it. Neither did Bryce Young. Neither did Dak Prescott. Like, the best team that Bryce Young helped lead his team to beat were the Cardinals, which was more the run game and defense doing anything than he did. Dak Prescott, best team he beat were the Giants, but that was the Dallas defense just dominating that game. Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions in that game.
Yep.
Fumbled another time and lost it. Like, he had 3 turnovers in that. He didn't beat the top teams.
Yep.
But Bo Nix, hey, it sucks that he didn't beat some of these top teams. It sucks that he wasn't able to, beat the Chargers or beat the Steelers or things like that. And that Steelers game was a defensive nightmare of a game from both sides. I mean, it was just a defense, basically. One big play from the Steelers won it. But again, he took his team that was expected to win 5.5 games to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott played in 8 games.
Yep. Let's break this down in terms of the top teams that they did play this year. They got the Chargers twice. They got the Chiefs twice. They had the Cincinnati Bengals, the Steelers. That game was obviously pretty rough. The Atlanta Falcons were a team that everyone thought was going to be a quality contender for the playoffs, and Bo Nix shredded that defense. Let's go to the first game in Kansas City where he had the Chiefs on the ropes and was literally about to have a game-winning field goal drive that got blocked on an oversight from the special teams coordinators, which eventually got essentially Ben Katwika fired, and Mike Westhoff left directly after that game. You've got the Chargers game, the first Chargers game, early turnovers and defensive struggles really kind of set the pace to that game. But Bo Nix brought this team back and got it within a touchdown. And then he had the Chargers on the ropes in Los Angeles on Thursday Night Football and was beating the hell out of that team until the defense couldn't figure out how to stop Justin Herbert. They did not know how to tackle in the second half of that game. Cincinnati. Bo Nix had a touchdown and a 2-point conversion away from winning that game, and Sean Payton got cold in his feet and decided to not go for 2 to kick the extra point and to go into overtime. That's Joe freaking Burrow, right? On the other side, that's an elite starting quarterback. And in the Buffalo game, he goes out on the first drive, scores a gigantic touchdown on an absolute seed to Troy Franklin, a beautiful throw. And then the defense crapped the bed all over themselves. It's not that Bo didn't beat the top teams. The Broncos didn't beat the top teams. In general, it's a team game.
Yeah. And we have Cody W coming in saying with the $5 donation, thank you, Cody. We appreciate that. He says, look what Bo did with a Sutton. Now imagine what he could do with a Debo, Coop, Higgins, Godwin. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why the Broncos want to add more playmakers. I'm a firm believer. I know I'm one of the few who does this, that Cortland Sutton's not a number 1 receiver. He was thrust into being one because the targets had to go somewhere and the rest of the room was just a bunch of guys until they figured out Marvin Mims' role as a gadget player towards the end of the season. Devon Bailey was a solid number 4 receiver and produced like such. And so you had those extra targets that needed to go elsewhere. Bo adding another receiver and, getting a running game going, finding a tight end. This offense can be a legit threat next season, which Chase Wellner comes in with the $5 donation. Thank you, Chase. We appreciate that. What's your confidence level that they can both fix the run game and add a couple more legit passing threats in one offseason? Pretty high. I mean, it's just a thing of finding the right guy. I mean, you're hoping that one of those adding additions in the passing game also helps in the run game with a running back. Mm-hmm. You're hoping that another one helps in the run game and the passing game with a tight end. Like, so a lot of things that can help fix one, help fix the other. When going back and watching over this Broncos running game this year, I know a lot of people want to blame the offensive line. I would put most of the issues on the tight ends and how badly they were blocking on the edges, leading to issues. I mean, every single play, offensive line can't hold up, but they were number 1 in run block win rate by ESPN this year for a reason. Majority of the time, most of their snaps, they did their job. They got their job done. The weak link on the offensive line was Luke Wattenberg, but he was still serviceable.
Yep.
Ben Powers had a better season than people want to give him credit for.
Yeah.
His issues were more so in pass protection than as a run blocker. So adding that tight end who can be a legit, weapon in the passing threat, receiving threat in the passing game, who can be a blocker, adding that running back who can be a legit runner and a legit receiver, adding that receiver who can, be a capable blocker out there, because watching the blocking from this Broncos wide receiver room was infuriating for me, because I am a firm believer of don't touch receivers who can't block.
Yep.
And so I think that my confidence level is very high, Chase, that they can get it done, because there's a lot of crossover with what they need to fix both of those.
Yeah. I want to touch on this really fast. And Eric, I know you got to get out of here because you got plans with the wife for Valentine's Day, but I'm right there with you. And to me, I think adding a running back that has vision, that to me was the biggest thing that the Broncos lacked this season, because like you touched on it, number 1 in run block win rate, according to ESPN Next Gen Stats. That's player data tracking, like the chips and shoulder pads tracking one-on-one combination, one-on-one blocks. If you win your one-on-one, you get a win in that particular rep. I don't know exactly how it all plays out, but you win your one-on-one rep, that goes to your run block win rate.
Yep.
Broncos number 1 in the NFL this season in run blocking, and had one of the worst running games because they had running backs that were just running into the backs of the offensive linemen. Javonte Williams looking directly at you, man. The dude runs with his eyes closed. Audric Estime didn't get nearly enough run, at least in my estimation. He should have been featured a heck of a lot more.
Well, to be fair, it hurts when you fumble twice on your first 9 carries.
Yeah, and Sean Payton has an issue with playing rookies. That's not a rookie quarterback. Like that's also a fact going back to his entire time as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Rookies typically don't play for Sean Payton unless it's at the running back position, and they are a game-changing player. Audric Estime wasn't that. He was still a very consistent player whenever he touched the football. Get him a running back that can actually see what's going on in this inside zone and duo scheme that Sean Payton likes to run for the most part, and get a guy that can press the hole vertically and then cut laterally, one cut and go, and get downhill. And we might actually see a transformation in this running game, which, like you said, also translates to the play action passing game. It translates to more quarterback driven run plays where you can run some zone read and read option and utilize Bo Nix's athleticism. I think that's the biggest priority that you have offensively this season, is to find you a game-changing running back. And while I would love to get Ashton Genty, he would be the ideal fit for what the Broncos want to do. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa is a great player. Travion Henderson is another nice guy. I like RJ Harvey from UCF. There's some fumbling issues there. This running back, LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse, this running back class is stacked, guys. They're going to end up with a game-changing running back in this class, just because the volume of them there is so high this year. It doesn't have to be running back round 1 or 2. You can find a guy in round 3 that can be your game-changing, set the tone, bell cow style of running back.
Yeah, and we have Mike Ronquillo coming in and saying, Happy Valentine's Day to all the ladies of Mile High Huddle podcasts. Go Broncos. Yes, definitely. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone in the chat. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening with your significant others. For those of you who celebrate, I know not everybody celebrates Valentine's Day, because there's a large group of people who believe that, and not necessarily wrong, that, it's big shopping or whatever it is, whatever the term is. We have Luke Patterson coming in. What's up, brother?
Luke, what's up, dude?
The original Friday Night DVD. Talk about love. Cheers, boys. Like, subscribe, and follow. Definitely. Thank you, Luke, for jumping in on that. Michael Mukilo again coming in saying, great show tonight, Eric and Lance on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos. And Michael Mukilo also brings up Devin Neal, who is an interesting one. Now, some matters of business here. First off, we want to thank you guys all for a wonderful 5 years of Dove Valley Deep Divers. We appreciate it so much, and we cannot tell you how much the love and support that we've gotten over these 5 years means to us. We are sad that for now, Dove Valley Divers is going to be placed on the back burner. We won't be coming live to you next Friday night, and probably for a few more Friday nights after that. We will still be around. I will be stepping in to fill Scott's shoes on the Broncos for breakfast every morning on Mondays and Wednesdays with Nick Kendall. I'm super excited for that. Not super excited about getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning for those, but I'll make it work. We are also looking at some other things to do with the show that could bring us back to the air on Friday nights. Talking about, possibly going a little bit later, possibly keeping the show shorter, consistently about half-hour mark. Things like that we're in the discussions about. just while we sit there and take a look at things and see what can work for us, getting Lance back on the show. That's part of what we're looking at here. But you guys, we seriously cannot tell you how much we appreciate all of the support for the 5 years and for going forward. Here's to another 5 years, another 10, 15 years of us doing this with your guys' support. That is possible. And again, we are so appreciative of that. But yeah, I will be on Monday morning, bright and early, with Nick for Broncos for breakfast. Lance will be writing, and while we figure out some things. Before we get out of here, Lance, any last words?
No, I just want to echo a lot of those sentiments that you just put out there. Like, I'm sad to see this go, but at the same time, I'm excited for the future. We'll be back. It sucks that we're getting put on the back burner as we come into draft season, but with my new job, guys, I've tried to explain it a handful of different times. We've got to find a better solution to be able to get me on the screen full time for everybody. As soon as I work out some of those intricacies with my day job, we'll get back to you. And it's not the end. It's just a bittersweet pause for the most part. So You guys stay tuned and stay safe and take care, and hopefully we'll see you guys again here soon.
Yeah, and now the matters of business here. Of course, you guys can follow us on Twitter. We are at... Why is it not showing? I'm having issues. You can follow the Mile High Huddle podcasts on the different Twitter accounts. There's at MHH Pod and at X or at Mile High Huddle on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, as well as being able to follow us on Twitter. I'm at Erick Trickel, and this is at Lance S_MHH. You can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I am also on Blue Sky that you can reach out and follow me on there as well. You can follow on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle or facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod, where you can get access to all the written content and stuff like that. Make sure you guys are leaving a like and commenting and all that stuff on Facebook. Helps us out so much with the algorithm on Facebook, as things consistently change with algorithms on everything. And mhhmerch.com to get your merch on. I refuse to say swag. And you can get things like this hat. You can get things like shirts. Not this shirt, even though it's a nice little Star Wars Hawaiian shirt, by the way. You can't get shirts like this, but you can get WWD Diver shirts, Broncos for breakfast, Huddle Up, Mile High Insiders, the Orange and Blue View, all the different podcasts that we have. We have merchandise for it. You can also get mugs, all this stuff like that you can get for there. And as well as go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear each month, some merch each month. Again, I refuse to say swag. You guys can get all sorts of different stuff like stuff for the winning for that, and also leaving those reviews helps us out. Again, with the algorithms, those darn algorithms. But if you guys can't afford to do so, I'll, of course, subscribing, liking, sharing. It just takes a matter of seconds. You can do that on, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Twitch, if you happen to be watching on Twitch. All of that, again, helps us out with those darn algorithms that, I like to talk about so much. And it just, again, I can't tell you how much it helps out, and it only takes a matter of seconds for doing that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for 5 years of tuning in. We will definitely be back. In what capacity? We are not sure yet, but we will be back. I will see you all Monday morning, bright and early. And if you're not there, I will be very sad. Looking to make, Broncos breakfast my tenure under it, refusing stepping in for Scott, who's some tough shoes to fill. Nothing but love and respect for Scott. One of the nicest dudes I've ever met. I'm excited to be stepping in. And there is no filling his shoes, but I will do my best. And Glenn Ashley, that's a joke, buddy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And enjoy your Valentine's Day. Oh, and of
go
course,
Broncos.
Go Broncos.